We'll open the ICN meeting with our committee of prayer firstly. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a team and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect the ratepayers, all our citizens, staff and stakeholders of our district. And we continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater benefit of our people and the Te Aroa. We ask for these things in your name. Amen. Amen. Welcome everybody. We've officially opened this meeting and we are going to adjourn it just as quick for 30 minutes. Is that acceptable? Yeah, at 1:30, sure. Everybody? Right. Thank you very much. Welcome back, councillors and staff. We'll reconvene our infrastructure meeting. We were up to apologies. Any apologies? No, everybody's here. Public forum, nobody here. Notification of items not on the agenda. Just one item, councillors. I just have 10 minutes about just to catch up on Peter's submission that went in late last night regarding roading. So we'll talk about that at the end, Peter. Or do you want to say then? Okay, thanks, Peter. Any declarations of conflict of interest? No. Confirmation of minutes. Could we have a mover and seconder that we see the minutes? Councillor Peter, Councillor Steve. All in favour? Go through those page by page. Thanks, councillors. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. It's fine. No comments. We'll just move on to the infrastructure management report. In your hands, Hamish. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kerry. So I'd like to invite Dan and Roger up to the front, come and talk to their respective areas. Kerry, I think if we could get our way through the page by page, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll just go through page by page, and Dan and Roger can grab the items as they come up. So we'll start from page 7. My page 7, transport. Perhaps I'll just get Dan, any comments you'd like to make, and then councillors, any questions they might have on the transport, if you like.
Thanks, Chair Kerry. So yeah, just a general update in regards to transportation space in regards to our maintenance and renewal items. Obviously, coming to the time of year, and especially to the end of the financial year and being winter, things have slowed down in regards to the maintenance space in regards to sealed pavement repairs. We're still carrying on with general maintenance activities such as the vegetation, so berm mowing or rural berm mowing. So the second round on the sealed network was completed. So the next round will be in the new financial year come spring. We're still pushing through doing drainage renewal works, so doing quite a lot of culvert replacements around the district, and unsealed road maintenance is another one that in preparation for the winter period and wetter periods. But yeah, in regards to the renewal program, that's completed, and so that resource in regards to reseals and rehab, so that resource has been moved into assisting with the Cyclone Gabrielle response and working on a few sites in that space.
Right, thank you, Dan. Councillors, if I just go page 7 through to page 10, which is transport. Any questions to Hamish or Dan? Councillor Mike?
Just a query on why mowing sides of roads now, middle of winter, no growth.
The second round, so we do 2 rounds of mowing in the rural sealed network. So one's done basically after the spring growth, and then we generally aim to do this. Sorry, that's the first round. Then the second round we generally aim to do around coming into autumn or autumn coming into winter period. That is actually completed now. So it got completed in May. We generally aim to do it around April, May, but yeah.
Supplementary to that, through Chair, is it necessary to be mowing now or May, June? Could we have missed it out and started in spring again?
We generally do get some growth over this period. We haven't really seen that this year, just based on how the weather's been. It's been quite dry, and then it's been too cold, so we're not getting that growth. So as far as the level of service that has been agreed, is to do it twice a year. So I suppose that's up for discussion around whether we will look at changing that.
Councillor Peter?
Thanks, Chair Kerry. Dan, I don't think you were here then, but 2 or 3 years ago, Mayor Tracy will remember, I asked a question then about rather than, and with reference to in our LTP about cutting the mowing down to perhaps one a year or 1.5. But I mentioned the what's done at our golf course, for instance. We spray with a very diluted mix of Escort, and that gives grass a hell of a headache and stops it growing for, well, it grows, but it very slowly, and cuts down the need to mow. And of course, on a golf course, the biggest cost is mowing. I mentioned that to whoever it was at the time. You'd remember that, I think, Tracy. I'm not sure what anything's been done about it, but it could be, given the looking at only mowing once a year, it could be an option.
I'm not sure what came out of the conversation when it was brought up in the past, sorry. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that we can revisit. Look at options.
Thanks, councillors. Well, there's no more questions on the transport. We move on to Three Waters, which is pages 11 through to 14. Perhaps, Roger, I'll just get you to make any comments to your report, and then if you go through, and then we'll get questions from the councillors. That's okay? Great.
Very much, Chair Kerry. Very much, Chair Kerry, Mayor Tracy, councillors. Just a couple of points. Firstly, the Three Waters Advisory Group terms of reference will be out today, so we've received those. We're just finalising the details and then getting them out. Was going to get them out to the Chair and Mayor just to review after that initial meeting that we had in May. The Denver and Woodville flow meters, there was a meeting with Horizons yesterday, I think. And that went very positively. So we're making some good progress with Horizons in terms of the effort the team's putting in to rectify some of the challenges around our compliance. And we were meant to get an abatement notice on or from Woodville, and apparently that will no longer come. So I just wanted to make the comment that it appears that we're gaining some confidence with Horizons, which is encouraging. The water and wastewater operations manager role, an offer was made. Unfortunately, that wasn't successful, so we're going to need to go back out to the market for that particular role. And finally, we've got another board water notice out at Pongaroa. You may have noticed right now. And the UV, essentially the water was too dirty for the UV to be able to destroy protozoa. So within the regulations, that requires us to issue a board water notice, which we've done. However, all properties should have a tank. We know that not all do, but most do. And so that should have minimal impact on most of the residents at Pongaroa. You would have seen the details around the AGV repairs and that the media or the material that has to go in, I believe will be transported up there this week. And then we're just waiting for those nozzles to arrive from Germany. And then I think this repair should make a significant difference to that Pongaroa water supply. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks very much, Roger. Councillors. Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Kerry. Question through to you then, Roger, with Pongaroa. Have you had much kickback from the community? I mean, you've been doing really well at doing the comms on it, but I haven't heard any, I haven't had anything. I just wondered if you've been, you're good.
I spoke to Carsten. He hasn't received anything on Facebook. So either they're so used to it or I don't know. But just again, trying to keep them as we can. Very frustrating, but just to make sure that we're supplying its age and condition of some of that.
Farmers maybe. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair Kerry. Just a quick question, Roger. It would be at least 18 months, if not 2 years ago, that Chris Chapman arranged for bulk flow meters to go on our extraordinary lines to see if we could establish where we were losing water. And I know that there was one going to be out by the, what's the road? No, the other side. Laws Road, yes, on Laws Road because of the concerns about a property there. We've never heard another word about that, and I just wondered whether there'd been any results from those meters, and are they still there, and have they been read?
Can I get back to you? That's right, I don't know, I need to check and
It
just.
was when we were really quite concerned about the amount of people on the extraordinary water lines and what the checks and balances were in place to make sure they were all actually legitimately connected, and that's why they did that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I just feel quite good with the what your team is doing at the moment. There's a lot of work going on behind this couple of pages for sure, but it's good to see that we're looking at the water metering and the flow meters is a big step forward, isn't it? I think the flow meters, I think, Ellie, that was a big important part of our discussions a couple of years back, but the more important ones, I think now what we're doing at under 4.3, really, that's pretty critical. Thanks very much for that, Roger. We'll move on to solid waste. You're off the hook pretty easily today, Gemma. So solid waste, we'll take the report as read since Joe isn't here. But any questions through to Hamish? Hamish might just want to make. Hamish and I did discuss. There has been a couple of things going on with solid waste that Hamish may or may not want to talk about today. But anyway, any questions particularly? Councillors.
Yeah, no, just a quick comment. Thanks, Cheeky. It's a shame Joe isn't here, but can you please pass on? I regularly visit the Dannyvirk one, and I'm very pleased to see little initiatives. There's a red bin there now to collect the little soft tops of things, and the team have also set up a flattened cardboard, large flattened cardboard, so it's not having to go inside the bin, and the height of where I can put my container of my very few wine bottles through makes it a heck of a lot easier. So some of those little things are making a big difference, and it's so tidy there now. It's just spot on. So my congratulations through to the team.
Thanks. Should we just leave this on waste to the table? There is some ongoing things that Hamish is doing with solid waste, but perhaps next meeting, be time to talk about those. Yeah. Okay. Operational projects. Oh, sorry, Councillor. Apologies.
Some time ago, there was talk about getting rid of the glass recycling, curbside glass recycling. Uptake wasn't all that flash and didn't command the cost of doing so. Is there been any change in that?
Through you, Chair Kerry. So no change at this stage. One of the changes the Chair hinted at is likely to be a change in contracting, the way things are being delivered at the moment. We've got a 17A review coming up shortly, but we're also looking at other alternatives. But I don't think Joe would be recommending that we change the service in any way at this stage, because we know habits take a long time to bed in, and we're hoping that the uptake will follow. So we're not keen on changing the days or the frequencies or anything like that while we're still in that sort of bedding in phase. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, Councillor.
Can I just ask what's the red status is for waste management and minimisation plan review?
So it's just that we haven't adopted it yet. So we put on hold the consultation on it while the LTP was being consulted on, and so that's still to happen. We're hoping for July, but we need to work with Ellie on the exact dates on that. Yes, yeah, the bylaws are happening at the same time, so yeah, we're just conscious of overloading the public with consultations. So.
Change. 7.2, Cyclone Gabriel roading report, Hamish. Yes. Welcome, Andrew. If you'd have talked anything through the reporting, Councillor Spin.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, I'll take the report as read. Probably the biggest talking point here is probably 3.1, which we have now confirmed that we can get 100% funding for the initial response, which is I've been sitting on, I suppose, for about a month now because I was told I shouldn't advise it too widely just yet until we had a confirmation, which I finally got an email. So, yep, that's official. And that will see us, that funding there will see us through till probably about end of September in terms of our Gabriel response. The next stage is we are now at our next round is actively being assessed, and I've been informed that we're going to be getting $20 million for the recovery phase to continue, which will basically see us through the probably next financial year for recovery. So yeah, good space in terms of that. Over the last few reports as well, I've been shifting the tone of terms of our full recovery amount as well in regards to the full 90 million. As we've progressed through the recovery works, we are starting to find that the contingency / deterioration of faults allowance that we had in the full recovery, we are starting to I suppose faults haven't deteriorated as expected over last winter, so we haven't had dropouts get bigger as such, but we still have that allowance in the application in case we get a bad winter this winter coming through and we do get a whole lot of damage. But what we're starting to find is that yes, the 90 million we have currently pitched right now, I do believe we are going to come in under that, but we do hold that in our application through to NZTA as a essentially contingency allowance until we know we've got confidence that we know we're going to be able to repair everything to the amount we've got approved. So yeah, there's a little bit of, I suppose, shift in tone in terms of the commentary in there because of that, because we are starting to get confidence in terms of our recovery costs now. And once we get through, I suppose the next, we've got a few big projects still left to go. And once we know them, we will be doing a full update on financials to fully update the costs essentially. But yeah, apart from that, questions, comments?
Sounds good. Part of that, David, for sure. Councillor Feeder.
Yeah, Andrew, that 20 million covering resilience improvements, is that mainly drainage?
So that is, for emergency works, traditionally we only ever get funding when the road carriageway is impacted. But when we have storm events, we lose shoulder formation and upslopes become unstable in bits and pieces. And so when the original, I suppose, the cyclone came through, central government started talking a lot about Build Back Better. And so when we put that, when I sat down with the investment advisors through NZTA, we built up the base cost of what we believe each fault was going to cost to repair. And then on top of that, we put in basically a percentage allowance for expansion of scope of that Build Back Better component. So, example, there's plenty of sites that we drive past that we know will turn into potentially dropouts if we don't do anything with them. I suppose it's the fence at the top of the cliff as opposed to the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, which traditionally emergency works has always been funded on. So it's putting our foot forward to be able to enable that conversation to happen, and that's going to very much probably be in line with the emergency works review policy that's going on that Peter's going to be talking about. They're very much starting to talk in there about resilience works. So you might be aware of the land stabilisation trial project that we're exploring. So it's things like that. It's identifying these risk areas and putting some treatment in place early. So we spend $5,000 now to prevent a $300,000 dropout, for example, things like that. But it's always been a struggle to get funding through NZTA for those type of activities because it's a bit more theoretical than when you know you've got a dropout, you know you've got to fix the dropout.
Thanks for that. I know, well, for some time now we've talked about the need for resilience work to spend $1,000 now rather than $1 million later on, sort of thing. But it's good to see that they're taking note of that. But didn't I read somewhere where the build back bed has been dumped?
The conversation, I suppose, the wording around it is they've backtracked from that, because I think build back better in some councils and organisations' mind was two-way road. We've got an opportunity. Let's build a passing lane, for example. Whereas build back better, I suppose, and when I speak about it, it is that resilience, building back in a way that's going to be like to have that resilience in it. So yeah, the build back better conversation when you're talking Auckland, when you're talking state highway, it's a different to the conversation, I suppose, the terminology that we're talking about when we're talking resilience, not improving assets, not making roads wider, not making, like I say, putting in passing lanes where we,
Right, thanks very much, Andrew. It's good news still coming into the building from the roading sector, which is great, and let's just pray we get a decent winter, isn't it? We really finish off what you've been doing out there. So thanks very much for the team and all its efforts. Now back up there, wouldn't I? Right, councillors, just backtracking. Fraction, could we have a move in a second to adopt 7 point number 7, number 1? Councillor Steve and Councillor Irina, all in favour? Just go back to the first report, 7.1, recommendation 1. A mover and a second, I thank you. Councillor Scott and Mayor Tracy, all in favour? Gary. Thanks very much, councillors. Right, Don, Cyclone Gabriel recovery report. Welcome here today, Don. Thanks for your time as usual on this infrastructure day.
Thank you. I've just made it actually to the meeting. Another one. Look, I'll take it as read. Just a number of things as we transition into BAU for the next couple of months or month or so. We will be applying to DPMC for a variation to the funding we've got, which is roughly 900,000 over the next up to 2026, 25 July. But it is for staff time, and obviously with staff now being reduced, we would like to use that for a number of projects. One is obviously gathering information around the effects of Cyclone Gabriel, not only to rural areas but also to our towns and businesses, which includes MCI providing us with really detailed information around the rural side, and Infometrics supplying us a 3 to 5 year review of where we're going. And on top of that, we've got Dotlo Asata, who provide more of the welfare, well-being and social information, which we just looked at the other day, and I have to say, you can see there are changes happening. So we think that is going to be really important money for council going forward as we come out of the team doing the recovery. The other one is that you're probably well aware that there is a land stability project working with Andrew and his team. Horizons MPI has been part of that, and ourselves, and we have said that we don't want to cost ratepayers a cent, and it should not at this stage. So we'll hopefully have a proposal to come forward pretty shortly, and that's going to be also part of the variation we're asking from DPMC to cover any funding with that as the first cab off the rank, just to see how that works. I have said that I think it's probably one of the most important projects I have seen for roading for rural areas for years, and it's one that if we can get it off the ground, I'm sure other areas, rural areas in New Zealand will say, well, this is something we'd like to be part of as well. Now, the other part is that we're also approaching DPMC around as we transition out to make sure we don't lose any of that funding. Now, feeling is that they would rather see us use it over, or council use it over the next year or so rather than give it back. Although it is pretty strict around the rules at the moment. So look, I'm feeling bullish about it. I think they're more than happy to help us approach Minister for Emergency Management, Mitchell, and the Minister of Finance as well. Their feeling was it's a tick off. I'm not so sure about that, and here's hoping. So that's taking up the time at the moment, and obviously there's quite a lot of reporting going on as we finish off our projects.
Thank you very much for that, Don. Councillors, any questions for Don? Councillor Mike?
Through you, yeah. Kerry, Don, you talked about working with Andrew on a stabilisation or roading thing, and other councils taking it up. But do we know it's going to be successful here, or in what it is?
And yeah, look, it's probably Andrew's probably the best man. You come forward, Andrew. I think. It is an exciting project, I think.
Yeah, so I suppose over the journey of, I suppose, my roading career, going back to when I was hanging on a shovel, I've been fairly well, I suppose, exposed to storm events. I remember back in 2004 in Rangatiki, I had to crawl under a digger to drag it out of a swamp, essentially. But essentially, yeah, I suppose, as I've observed it, and then also alongside the Route 52 project, getting exposed to, I suppose, how this damage occurs over quite a long, say, understanding what the dynamics are going on from an engineering perspective. You can always see where these things are going to be happening, and you can pick the ones, the road dropouts and bits of pieces, and where some of these big slips will come down, just by looking at the land formation and bits of pieces. So one thing on the Route 52 project, for those who know Sergeant's Hill, which is going down into the Wimbledon Gorge, there's all this, there's, I think, in 2020, right at the start of the project, there was, I'd done all the scoping prior to Christmas, and over Christmas we had a bit of a rain event, and come back after Christmas, and there was a big crack that had opened up in the road. And over the time of the course of the project, I suppose I've been observing and monitoring this section of road, with the view of, I suppose, what we could do to prevent these type of things happening in the future. And knowing, having observed them over the time, you can see the causes of these things is basically a lot of the damage that we get on our network is uncontrolled water discharge over the banks. And this one in particular, basically was when the tree harvesting project went through, prior to the Route 52 project's actual starting up, a big pine tree was cut down, and that pine tree basically had the root structure had started to break down, which meant the land moved and cracks opened up. And so trying to get on top of those cracks in the land formation is basically I suppose the way I said it is the key to stop some of these events happening. And there are other scenarios over the course of that project that I've sort of identified that you can literally see where the water's pouring out. It's going into the ground up above the slope, going underground, and then doing something under the road. Understanding what those water flows are, I suppose, is if we can either divert the water upslope to get it to the road culvert in a more direct manner, it'll stop it infiltrating through the ground. And then on the downslope, as they discharge out of culverts, if of the gullies that they're running down, if we can get trees planted on those downslopes, that'll start help locking the soils together. And the bit on Sergeant's Hill that we've identified, when we went out there the other day, it's probably a perfect example of where you've got one culvert up the road, which we're having all sorts of trouble with, and there's probably a $500,000 dropout that's formed because of this uncontrolled discharge from a culvert. Down about 100 metres down the road, there's another gully that the Morgans planted out about 30 years ago that's now all grown over, and there's no erosion on that gully. And so when we've seen the amount of trees that have been planted around the place in terms of like the billion tree project that's been going on, It's probably sort of, so if we got a small percentage of those trees and we could start planting them on these vulnerable areas, we could probably go a long way to actually reducing some of these impacts of these storms. And it's like literally like the fence above, fence at the top of the cliff, as opposed to the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff type scenario. So that's the principle of, I suppose, where it's come from.
To add to that, Horizons have a slew program, and they are happy to use that program as well with the Morgans, so that the trees can be provided for free. And MSD are also happy to use the guys at the moment who are on the fencing project to transition, if it's possible, into planting those trees. So yeah, yeah. Oh, look, it'll be up to the land manager to work with the Morgans on suitable trees. We know that poplars down in towards Pongaroa became too heavy for that soil, and they moved, they fell and just ripped out the soil. And of course, you've got that dropout 6 k's south of Pongaroa, and that's simply because the trees are way too heavy on that side of the hill. But however, yeah, and actually, I have to say, Horizons are actually have been quite helpful around this, because they think it's just a good idea that could be used to solve 2 problems: land stability above the road and stop the land coming onto the road. I think Andrew's done a really good job.
And it's largely going around because of the recovery team, but within the meetings that Don's been having, we've had Horizons there, we've had MSD there, we've had all these different parties. It's like, well, we're all kind of working in the same space, but we're working disconnected. Or traditionally, we work disconnected. When you're in the same room, you can say, well, yeah, Horizons can provide the trees. The sluice sort of things give us access to the land, because that's what the landowners are doing anyway. Put them along the roadside, you actually get better bang for buck and a bit more direction. And then from a roading perspective, we can get access to some of these private land to do some of this water diversion of bits and pieces. So I suppose, yeah, the stars are, I suppose, aligning with the stars, getting all the right people in the room, so we can get some benefits.
And just add to that again, because we've got real support in the room, they also regard it as a great project, and they did the went to Morgans and had a chat to them about it, and yeah, it appeared like it was a no-brainer to everyone. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be a great project. Yeah.
Thanks. Help, Peter.
Thanks, Gary. Just a brief comment. It's feast or famine, isn't it? A few years ago, roadside trees were a real issue for us. Cost us a hell of a lot of money. But they were mainly pines planted sort of after Bowler in the early 80s as a means of protecting banks and so on. But then they got a bit big and started falling over.
Actually, a good point, actually, because coming back, I think it was from Herbertville, on one corner we saw a whole pile of acacia trees that are now sprouting all over the place, and are going to cause Andrew a real headache in about 3 years' time. We've seen that before. It's actually farmers that planted them, and then they can ring up and complain to us because they're now leaning over the road.
Just a quick comment through you, Chair, that no matter what tree it is, it has to be managed. Just simple as that. It's got to be managed. Leave it there for 50 years and it's going to cause problems no matter what. Thank you.
Just one other thing, in that variation, we're working with Peter Sinclair and Sarah around looking at 5 other community hubs, mainly the Paetua, Ekatuna, Norsewood, around being prepared for the next big event, and putting aside, whatever 100,000 for that as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Don. Any further comment, councillors? Questions?
Whipple's name mentioned on that little list.
Well, yes, I'm not sure actually. Whipple has been approached. Yeah, definitely.
It'll be the city of the universe, though.
Councillors, Don. Thanks very much for that, Don. Councillors, quite a mover seconder for 7.3 recommendation 1. Councillor Noma moved, second Mike. All in favour? Right. Carried. Thanks, councillors. Right, moving on. Mike, welcome this afternoon. 7.4, capital portfolio report. In your hands for the mic.
Thank you. I guess I'll take it as read primarily. The part that I'd like to just cover off on the first few pages anyway is that essentially going into the long-term plan, we've really worked to try and address our resourcing for the next few years, as well as identify which ones that we've wrap up at the end of this year for our carry forward. So we've really seen so far a really positive outcome on that, and a huge reduction as to what we were looking at over the last year that we had. So that's that line. So I'm really happy with that. That's through the genuine support as well of our executive leadership team, making sure that we're actually tracking the same sort of way with how we want to manage projects and plan them into the future. So really been happy with that. You'll also see in here, but we've also done the trend one for our full stop. So we've got capital projects by state. So instead of trying to do them with the bar chart just there, we've actually tried to show you how it's going over time. So I know it's very colourful. There are some that are very happy with that. But either way, there are a few different parts to that. So if you do have any questions, I'm happy to keep amending how we actually bring this to you guys, especially for the portfolio tracking of it. Other than that, I don't have anything further, and I'm happy to get into the current project updates. Thanks.
We'll move into those. Councillor Sharon, I'm pretty happy to hear that. Going in the right direction, sure. If we just move through to the actual sheets, councillors, and we'll look through those. And any questions as we go, just yell out. So just see, right, we start with Norsewood Water Treatment Plant upgrade.
On the Norsewood Water Treatment Plant upgrade piece, I'd just also like to say that as we're going through it, it will, there's a risk as well that it could potentially get worse before it gets better. By that meaning that we will be looking in the future to changing out some of the components within the water treatment plant. So there is a part there where closing out towards the end of it and the commissioning part, water may get browner for a certain period of time, but not after we've commissioned it. So we do want to just start messaging that out.
Thanks. Councillors, Benedict Water Supply.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Have we managed to get the land acquisitions that we need to do the truck turning bay?
Peter Wims is actually handling our land acquisition of that site. We don't get an update to that, I'm sure. But again, we do have a contingency in place to actually keep on with the operation of it.
Yeah.
This is a public meeting, isn't it? So we need to be careful. Discussions have been ongoing with the owner of the land, and those are progressing quite well. I've got another meeting this Friday in terms of presenting a report to council. That's getting very close now. We've had two valuations done, one that one that is done for the landowner and one that is done for us. And we haven't seen each other's yet, but we have an idea that will come together and then determine the land area that would be appropriate to acquire and recommend through to council. So that's where things are at. I do have a rough estimate of cost associated with it.
Thanks, Peter. Any of you? Accommodation plant? On?
Other than that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just fluoridation plant as well. A lot of it just arrived on site today. So if you do go pictures we can share, but yeah, it's all going quite well.
Okay. Infiltration strategy. Woodville Headworks. Oh, sorry, Sharon.
So when you said it, I did IAF, not
Oh, yes, right. Woodville Headworks refurb. IAF project, Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Kerry. I've seen this being this colour for a wee while, Mike. What is the risk? I mean, you've highlighted here that the uncertainty about formalising funding agreement with Tumaira to recoup, I'm assuming, at least the $100,000 as per the funding agreement. I mean, they sat here last week and got very excited about how they've partnered with us for that development. When do we get to see the money, honey, do you think?
That's another one actually that I could ask Peter Windsor to also provide an update on, but for us, from a point of view, for us, it's just that it's, we do have that just uncertainty around when we're actually going to be finalising the agreement.
Just a question about money, Peter.
Yeah.
How much money we're going to get? Oh, when are we going to get the IAF money? I think it's upon conclusion of the actual project. So we've got most of the funding now, and you actually have to prove that you've completed the project. Are we talking about the same thing? Oh, sorry, to my right. Oh, their funding, right. So initial discussions have been had with to my right. There is a contractual requirement for them to contribute a minimum amount. We have presented maybe that might be not the minimum amount that we were looking for, but that's just at that initial stage. Timing wise, I'm trying to remember back, but basically we had put it in over the first 3 years upon conclusion of the development. The works. The conclusion of the works, our works, yes. Yeah, so it was put in the plan as 3 years. Sorry.
Sorry, you, Chair Keir. The fact that Mike and the PMO team have highlighted that as in that fantastic colour of orange. I'm just querying the fact that we've signed something with them, but there ain't no money in our bank yet.
And at this stage, I was not expecting that they would have paid any money. The question is, can we get an actual specific agreement for them to pay the amount and define the amounts and the dates if we are looking to seek additional funding from them, for instance. So it's minimum 100,000, but if the project costs are varied or there's a different level of service that we're achieved for that site, then there's some justification for having that discussion. That makes sense. So to do that, we then need to have an agreement that that's where we lie. That's it. So although we have a legal document which says they will pay 100,000, it's not clear exactly on when that will take place, whether it's 1 July, 31st of December, what year. So there's some clarification. Within the first 3 years. The discussion I've had with To My Rai representative is that they would look to clear that quite swiftly.
Can I just add to that? I'd like for us to commit to the fact that once the project's completed, we know what the total amount it's cost is, then we have a negotiation with them very soon after that, and then lock it in. I would hope within the first quarter of next year. The project should be finished.
Oh. Yes.
Yes. No. I didn't answer. That was the question was pointed at me. Yes, absolutely. It will be finished up very shortly.
You can see we rehearsed this.
That might have helped, Sharon. I'm not certain. Right. Councillors Ikitahuna wastewater. I hear Tua wastewater. Data. Rahi Tahuno. We've had a pretty good fill-in from Andrew there. Emergency Works, Rakaitai Bridge. And Dennyberg Wastewater Treatment Plant. Oh, did you? That's okay. Any questions? Anything from you, Steve? Thank you, councillors. Thanks very much for that, Mike. It was we'll just switch back and get the off for a bit of final thing. I can't find the numbers. I'll just get a mover in a second of the.
You move the capital.
Steve, councillor Sharon, all in favour? James, carry. Thanks very much for that, Mike. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Councillors, we'll just have a bit of an update. Peter, if we'll just get you to pop up, thanks. Right. Councillors, you would have received late last night draft, or it wasn't a draft actually, or was it a draft? Submission regarding roading. It's just going to bring us up to date with that, and not sure what do you need from us, just an information chat, Peter, or do you want some backup for what your input? Okay, leave it.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, so here we have to make a difference. The only point of doing this is if our submissions are actually noticed. And to do that, we have to explain to the committee who's reviewing this what our situation is as a council, so that it's very clear that we've got difficulties in what they're proposing. And the other is what are some of the solutions. So in this instance, for once, we've had a bit of time to actually think around what we should be submitting on and distill it down to some essential points. And the big picture here is that NZTA is struggling under pressure, and we've just seen the expenditures that are going on and the amount of work that's required, and it's in many places across the country, and it's happening repeatedly now. So they're looking anywhere for money. We are saying that ratepayers is not that source, and that if there is a public good to be had, it must be from a Crown perspective, because they have a fundamental interest in ensuring that the roading network is going to be able to deliver service for the country. So instead of looking inwards to their existing source of funding, we're suggesting look outwards to the Crown and develop a framework that would allow them, NZTA, to know that they've got a process to access additional funding when these events occur in the future. And the reason for that is these events are likely to increase in either frequency or definitely intensity going forward. So they shouldn't be trying to shift it back to ratepayers. They should either look to their own users, which is the user pays the petrol tax. And if that means an increase in petrol tax, that's what it requires. But thereafter, they need a process to go to the Crown that's dependable, so that they know that they can access special funding from Treasury. So that's the basis of the case.
Thank you, Peter. Personally, I think you made a very good submission, and the funding comments were appropriate. I think they don't want to hear all that, because they are hearing that from other places. But I've got comments of Peter there. Tracy, did you have any comment on that report? You had a look at that first too, didn't you? Yeah. So yourself, and then perhaps Councillor Peter, just to
acknowledge the amount of work that went into it, the speed at which it had to be done, but actually the significant cost to ratepayers that they are proposing. And I guess when we were away at the infrastructure symposium, we heard Waka Kotahi's side of the story, just saying there was no money there, but all councils are really concerned with this, and especially with the impacts of climate change. So a lot of work has to go into these, and we've got to drop everything and actually make those views count. So, and I know I was working on a letter with Peter to the Simon Bridges, the chair of Waka Kotahi, last night. So Peter,
Thank you. It's a tag team.
Toll roads. Do you think Route 52 is likely to be included as a toll road?
Oh, sorry, no, the boys were not going to answer that. No.
You don't know the answer.
Councillor Scott.
Look, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all the work that you've put into that, the wider team. It's very much appreciated. I just wonder, sorry, I'm going to turn that. Yes, and I'll try and speak a bit louder. I just wonder, with process, when it comes to doing submissions, I think there's always power that it's been endorsed by a committee. So I suppose it might almost be a question through to you, Mr. Chair. Is it worth us putting a motion on the floor to say that we endorse this committee endorses it, because that just gives it a bit of weight and keeps us with a good process.
I do, I think, councillors. Yeah. Those on Friday where mediation myself and Deputy Steve went to, there was certainly from that you wouldn't get a lot of confidence about changes in funding, and the chair of the NZ, Wakatahi's boss, was there, and other people. But I think certainly the way of funding, Peter, was certainly discussed there. It's obviously concerning, it's countrywide concern for sure. But we do, yes, we endorse your hard labour at the late at night. Thank you very much for that. But I think it's a good suggestion, Scott, too. So I think if perhaps if Scott, you might like to move that, and we'll have a seconder for that. Councillor Peter, in favour of supporting Peter's submission? It's carried. Thank you, Peter. Supported Jill and Dan and Andrew's work, but
just I suppose just as it sits right now, that policy come 1st of July, while the change in far rate is the sort of looks like the most obvious one, the actual biggest one is the change in frequency of what they consider a storm event. That could literally put millions of dollars on the table from 1st of July if we can't get it across the line. I suppose so. Some big decisions around level of service would have to happen if this went through as it sits.
The scary issue for us, isn't it? Thanks very much for that, both of you. Peter,
I just want to thank these two gentlemen for reducing my 18 pages to 9.
That's no mean feat.
Thanks very much for that, Peter and Andrew. Councillors, that brings us to the end of infrastructure meeting. So, any comments from councillors? Mayor Tracy, any wind-up comments?
I can sleep like my notes on that meeting now.
Yes, just on that, councillors, because we'll give you a report on the infrastructure symposium next meeting. So, Councillor Steve.
Yes, and I think from local government New Zealand, they said all the notes of the symposium were going to be shared. So, and there's a very good, very good video from the Mayor of Tauranga and Tauranga, New Plymouth, and all the presenters for that. So hopefully, if local government New Zealand sticks to what they said they were going to do, all those notes will be coming your way. So please read them. You'll enjoy them.
Thanks, Steve. Just as a closing comment, it was a really interesting session from the Chief Executive of basically Australian local government, NZ. It wasn't so much about infrastructure what really centres in our chair, but it was about the overall picture of the scene over there with for safety and the way they're approaching governance, the way councils are handling it. I'm not sure whether her session will be live, but we'll have a look. And if it is, make sure you get a look at that. Really interesting, wasn't it? A bit scary, actually. It was about the safety of staff, councillors, things that are going on. They're locking buildings. They were having meetings in private because of concerns. There were all sorts of things going on there. So
563, wasn't it, you? 563 councils.
Yes, yeah, 563 in Australia, and security and the way they're operating has become a major concern in places. among other, but financing and funding was a huge problem over there as well. Probably, it sounded to me like it was significantly worse than New Zealand, actually, some ways. I suppose it's a level, isn't it? But look, anyway, on that note, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We'll close this meeting. Thank you.